Morning all. We are live with one of our most important chats we've had, and actually the one that actually has had more interest and people are very excited about. We've got an absolute legend of menopause, probably an absolute pioneer, trailblazer, Kathryn Colas, who's basically made it her life's work to help women in midlife navigate the crazy world of business and personal lives and the changes that go on, very misunderstood changes, and very much pioneer it into the workspace and get ambassadors on board and coaches to help not just us as women who think we're going crazy and don't really realize what's going on when we want to beat people up one day, rule the world the next day, but also, you know, that the man folk in the offices around us and our spouses. She was also the first layman to be appointed to the medical advisory committee of the British Menopause Society. So basically, what is out there on menopause that Kathryn doesn't know isn't worth knowing. So what we're going to do, there's so much, I mean, it's such a big topic that you could cover. We could do this over a series of 10-hour-long chats. So we're going to touch stuff, but also you've got amazing stories. So I will leave you to tell your story. And then I've got a whole load of questions from people who can't make the live chat. And then anyone watching, if you've got any questions, then just throw them in the chat, and then and we will go through them all. So remember, there is no such thing as a silly question. So ask whatever you want to ask, however crazy it might sound in your head. Get it out there, put it in the chat, and we will answer it all. So I will hand over to you, Kathryn, and then come back in later.
Good. Thank you, Emma. It's a pleasure being here. And thanks for inviting me. I always love an opportunity to start talking about menopause because so few people know anything about it, and we're still struggling, as I was all those years ago, struggling in the dark. What on earth is going on in my life? And believe it or not, I was post-menopausal before I actually realized that I'd been going through perimenopause. And so what's that all about? But wow, what a realization when that did happen. All those crazy symptoms, which I'll tell you about, I'll lead into. But what happened then was postmenopausal, realized it was menopause. So, well, where's this information? How can I find out more? What's going on? Why isn't my doctor talking to me? Why isn't there anything in the surgery? And so I started to do my own research. I joined the British Menopause Society, which was fabulous, and I'm still a member, and I get all their journals. They publish a journal 3 times a year, and so I'm always up to date on everything that happens to women, and they call it post-reproductive health. And I get so much knowledge from that, and I'm like a sponge. I can't absorb it quickly enough. And I was also lucky enough, as Emma pointed out, to be elected by my peers at the BMS to be a member of the Medical Advisory Committee. Wow, what a big thing that was. I'm sitting around a table with 17 ologists of every kind you can think of. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And I really had this thought that they thought I was going to be a loose cannon, that I was just going to charge in there and say, right, you're not doing your job properly. You're not doing your job properly. Why don't we know about this? Why don't we know about that? But I didn't. I was there to learn. I was there to help them because I wanted to know what was going on in the society that I could utilize to help women on our level. Because we're not doctors, we don't always want the medical stuff. We just want to know what on earth's going on. Is it affecting you? Because it sure as hell is affecting me, and I don't know what to do about it. So I did a lot of research. I thoroughly enjoyed my 3-year time on that committee and learned so much and got to know all these professors and specialists, about heart health, brain health, cancer, you name it. They were in there, they were sitting around the table. So the interesting thing about that is they get the connection, the holistic connection about hormones and how it's affecting every part of our body as a woman. And for 40 years, that estrogen, that hormone estrogen, has been supporting all those functions, helping us live a normal life. We know it doesn't work like that, and we get PMS every month and that sort of thing. But imagine when you get to perimenopause around the age of 45 and you start to get PMS more regularly, not just every month, but in between the month as well. And you feel as if you're going crazy. You can't put a sentence together. You can't think of words. You can't think of words with 3 syllables. You end up talking baby talk, and you don't know what on earth's going on, and you've got nobody to talk to. Who's telling you this stuff? And that's what I felt when I went to medical conferences, which is where I learned so much, and the information from that helped me build my first website, Simply Hormones, because I'm scribbling notes. There are professors, lecturers standing up at the front of the room talking about various symptoms of menopause, and I'm scribbling away and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, they're talking about me, and it's a symptom, it has a name, I didn't know this. And they were talking about vaginal atrophy, vaginal dryness. I thought I had a disease, and then to find out that it was a normal part of aging and part of the reason when the decline of estrogen causes so many things to happen with our bodies. I say it's like the wheels falling off. Things start to go wrong, and you never really associate it with your hormones, but it so is. So back to my story, that realization that hormones could cause so much distress in our lives. I was down the library reading so many books, I can't tell you, medical books, women in history, diaries of women in history. You know, the wife of Leon Tolstoy wrote a beautiful diary, and in it, she wrote about menopause. She had given birth to 14 children, and sadly 7 had died either at the time of birth or in infancy, and she remembered all their names. And she used to transcribe all Leon's notes for his books. Very well educated woman, daughter of a solicitor. And she came to menopause and she wanted to commit suicide. And I burst into tears when I read that. You know, I think the sentence ran, I paraphrase, ran something like, nothing in life feels beautiful anymore. Everything is miserable and dark, and I don't want to be here. And that's exactly how I felt at the time. I was diagnosed with depression. It took me years to find out there's such a thing as hormonal depression, so I didn't have the mental health variety. It was hormonal depression. That was a huge relief as well, because I'd been sent to see a psychiatrist, and I didn't want the mind-numbing drugs of antidepressants, so they referred me to a cognitive behavioural specialist. That did help, but it was such hard going because I didn't understand, what am I doing here? What do you do when you're with a CBT therapist? Because she wasn't telling me, and it's about you talking, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be talking about. It took me ages to understand that. I think CBT therapists are so much better at what they do. But the biggest thing for me about being referred to a psychiatrist was at no time did either my doctor, that's my GP, or that psychiatrist suggest that it might have something to do with my hormones, because I was obviously going through menopause. Nobody said a word. And yet that is so important, because it comes as a huge sense of relief that you're actually not going nuts. That the reason your mind is racing, or the reason you're hitting the floor, or I self-diagnosed with bipolar. And here's one of those silly questions that I was scared to ask one of the professors I'd met. I was interviewing him because he knows so much about menopause. He's retired now, but you can look him up. There's so much great stuff on his website. Professor John Studd, double D. And I said to him, I'd like to ask you a question, and it feels a bit silly, but I've got to ask it. I have self-diagnosed bipolar disorder. Now, I know that's a serious mental health illness, but I'm ticking all the boxes. What's going on? And to my huge relief, he said, this is so common with women going through menopause. But it's transient, obviously. It's not a long-term experience. And I'm thinking, who knew? Who knows? Why isn't somebody telling us all this? It's just nuts that this information isn't filtering down to our level so that we can know more about this. And the reason for that is, of course, that doctors are not well informed. They're not going for the training, the menopause training, because they have to self-fund. They have to take time out to do this training in their very busy schedule. So they can do it part-time. And we've got a doctor on our team now at the academy. And you can look her up and all the things she does. So she's a GP and a menopause specialist. And she was horrified to find out that endocrinologists who specialize in hormones don't know about menopause. They specialize in the hormones throughout our body, and yet they are not up to speed on menopause. That's horrifying. To the GP, it was horrifying. I knew it. I said, yeah, been there, done that. I know all about this. And so it's really up to women, in my view, to find out as much as they can so that they can understand their symptoms and the different pathways available, the choices available to help them reduce the pressure of those symptoms, to give them back some quality of life and allow them to get on with life. And this also threatened my marriage. You know, I began to hate my husband. I resigned from my job. I didn't want sex because it was painful, but I didn't know why. And so we became very distant, and it became so bad, screaming matches, you wouldn't believe. Virginia Woolf and in that film, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, they had nothing on us, I should say. We were just screaming at each other. And I've got 3 girls. 2 of them were grown up at that time. 2 of them had moved out. One was at uni, one was working. But I did have my little late surprise who was born. I had her when I was 43. So she was quite young, 9, 10, 11. Luckily for me, she was going to a private school and she was weekly boarding. I think if I had her at home all the time at that period in my life, I think it could have got closer to ending my life, because I just felt so unworthy of being here, of knowing my place on this planet. I felt that I was just useless. What was I good at? All of a sudden I'd forgotten all the things that I'd achieved over the years, and began to believe this thing about being grey and beige. And as you see, I don't do grey and beige. It's not my colour, but it's about batting away some of the information that's coming at you from the media to really understand who you are, so that you can come to terms with those symptoms. And even within your marriage, and many men, I get calls from so many men who want to help their partners going through menopause. They recognize something's going on and they're at their wits' end to understand how they can help, because in so many instances the partner says, go away, I don't need your help, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm not going through menopause, you can't help me. And marriages break up. Mine nearly did. And but we were on the abyss. We'd agreed to go and see solicitors, and it was at that point I think I said to myself, hang on a minute, what's going on? I don't really want a divorce. He's the father of my 3 children. We have so much in common. We have a beautiful home. We have a business together. And some of those, there might be material things, but they were important to me. And I think it's important to own up that material things do matter in our lives. But then gradually, with all this information, I started my first website, simplyhormones.com. And then I wrote my first book after many years. This came out just before the COVID pandemic and the lockdown in March 2019. Or was it 2020? I've lost time. 2020. And which there's a special offer for everybody on the call today and those that pick it up later. And then through that, I met somebody who has become my business partner, Angela Hobbs. And together we put everything that I had already achieved up until that time and put it into and created an academy of learning where we specialize now in training programs for coaches and trainers. So if you're a coach or a trainer and you're interested in learning how more about menopause so that you can deliver it in the workplace, and it's not just about knowing about the symptoms, it's about equality, diversity and inclusion, culture, everything that the workplace stands for and where menopause sits within that. And our other big program is for the workplace itself, for managers. So and they're CPD accredited, so they're, as far as I'm concerned, they're damn good programs, and they're doing well, and we're getting some good organizations coming to us now to find out more about menopause. Thank goodness for Davina McCall. If you haven't looked at her program, that's brilliant. That was Channel 4 brought out a program on menopause, and she just went through all the stats, all the data, and just told it like it is, and had real women talking about their real experiences, and it was such a good program. So I would highly recommend that. And so I could talk forever till the cows come home on menopause, but Emma, if you've got any questions, perhaps it's a good time to start looking at those.
Do you know, I've got hundreds and hundreds of personal questions. Being the 43-year-old, yeah, 43. Am I going mad? Do you know, it was really interesting when you mentioned the bipolar bit, because I was thinking this week, going, maybe I'm bipolar. I know I go at 3,000 miles per hour and up and down and that kind of thing, but I just thought, my God, maybe I'm undiagnosed. Maybe, you know, me wanting to like beat up my family 1 minute and then, you know, bursting into tears when like a music track comes on Neighbours as a couple get married the next minute. But anyway, enough about me.
What I didn't say, and what I must quickly say, is hormones start to change at the age of 35. That's when the estrogen starts to decline, but you may not notice any of those changes or the symptoms till you're around 43, 45 onwards.
Yeah, which makes sense, because I had my three babies aged 36, 38 and 40. So I always said that even that it's only been the last year, because everyone said to me, like, pregnancy hormones take 2 years to come out of you as well, because it's that animal mode of protect the cub for against the lion going to eat it. So I've had a year of kind of feeling, okay, maybe I'm getting myself back, and now I'm 43, so I'm like, I have no idea what myself is right now. But I'm just gonna ride with it. But that leads me on to one of the questions. Some of that is the obvious symptoms, and you've touched on it a bit, but there seem to be so many symptoms. But what do you think are the big ones to kind of look out for that you have and you go, do you know what, this isn't me going crazy, this is the start of it?
I think one of the big ones is when you think you've got dementia. You can't remember anything, you can't remember appointments. I've driven around a roundabout 6 times because I couldn't remember which exit to come out of, and it was in my hometown. And you haven't. In 99.9% of cases, you do not have dementia. It's your hormones up and down like a fiddler's elbow, and there's just no rhyme nor reason to them. So dementia is one, and that leads to your ability to speak. And you might be in a meeting, or you might be just at home talking to the family, and all of a sudden, blank. What was I talking about? What was I talking about? How do I form the next sentence? And I found myself going round in circles as I'm talking, finding new ways to say things, because I couldn't think of that one word or phrase that said, 10 words. I had to say the 10 words, go back to baby talk, but nobody notices. So it's fine. And make notes. Just keep making notes. And if you've got a diary, and it might be an appointment, doctor, dentist, interview for a job, you might be presenting at work, whatever it is, allow time in your diary, make time in your diary and say, leave home this time, and get there that time early, so that you can prepare yourself, even if it's for the dentist, to find parking, to know what you're doing, to know what you're going to say. It's about allowing, because I used to just bung appointments in the diary and get on with it. And I was talking to an accountant not long ago for a very big international firm, and she said, I've never needed a diary. I just knew where I was supposed to be. My assistant would say, you're doing this, that and the other next week, and in it would go. I know all the client notes, and off I'd go. And then all of a sudden, couldn't remember a thing. She had to start using a diary. So, and I had to make sure that I built in those, and I still use it. If we're going on holiday or something, flight this time, taxi this time, leave home this time, all that stuff, just to make sure you don't miss it.
Yeah, isn't that the dementia runs in our family? There's the post-it thing as well, isn't it? Putting the post-it on the fridge and stuff with the timings and just that, and having, I think it's that having a bit of fun, as in when you know what's going on, and you're not crazy, you haven't got dementia, you're not bipolar. That go, do you know what, I'm gonna, and a friend of mine, she's going through it and she calls it the black toad. And she actually says to her husband, I'm going to put the black toad is out. So and he goes, just take the toad into another room. When but that's that actually.
What do you do when you don't recognize that the black toad is upon you? And I think it's a bit like when you get PMS and you sometimes go into that depressive state just before your period starts. And you don't always know it, but you find yourself being a bit short with people, starting arguments. And then all of a sudden you say to yourself, oh God, I've got a period starting. But you can't do that with menopause because your body hasn't forgotten what to do. It's trying to do it all the time. It's just nuts.
Yeah, and that on the husband thing, a couple of people have said one thing you do, you're big on, and in the workplace, because obviously we spend, most people spend, working women spend most of their time, more time at work than they do at home. So it's not just a husband thing, it's how do you deal with it with your colleagues? And a lot of the time these might be men in their 20s, 30s. You might be the boss. What's how do you go about that? What's your advice on that
conversation? It's about introducing it into the workplace, that the workplace does have a duty of care to help people understand about menopause. And I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a new inquiry just launched at the end of July. The Women and Equalities Committee are launching a review. They're going to scrutinise and understanding and legislation in the workplace practices and with menopause in the workplace. And they highlighted the fact that 1 million women left jobs at the peak of their career. It's a broad remit, but I think it's brilliant. We've also got an MP who's brought in a private member's bill on menopause and HRT. So I think with a two-pronged attack like that, we might get somewhere. But I think more and more celebrities are coming out and talking about it. It's still not getting to those people who need to talk about it, but I notice on more and more webinars that we do in the workplace as an introductory process that there's more men on there, and they have an opinion, and it's often a good supportive opinion. The ones who aren't supportive don't bother to turn up, and you soon find out who they are. But it's about talking, and maybe that's a discussion with your colleagues. It may be your female colleagues. Maybe you've got a women's group at work. You can start there. Anybody know anything about menopause? Shall we start a conversation? And things like that. And might get somebody like me to come in and do a talk or something and introduce it. But generally, if you're in a small firm and you have a young manager who may be male or female, again, it's about a conversation. Say, I don't know if you know anything about menopause, but I think I'm going through it. Can we have a conversation? What do you want to do? How can you support me? And he's going to go, oh, no idea, women's issues. We need to talk about this because I'm struggling, and I want to do this job. It's the best job in the world, whatever, but I need support in doing it. How can you help me? And you've opened the conversation then, and you go from there.
Cool. And the So another question, dealing with, and you touched on you having sort of older children. How do you deal with, a teenager? I mean, it's probably like me trying to deal with, 3 under 6 at the same time.
Yes.
They're all over the place. But how do you deal with a teenager and menopause at the same time?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of door slamming and a lot of arguments. And as I said, my daughter was boarding during the week and just coming home at the weekends. And at the weekends, she was mad on horses, so she had an occupation. So when my husband and I were rowing, luckily none of the kids were there. But how do you deal with teenagers? Again, they are just starting that process of hormonal change, so their hormones are up and down like a fiddler's elbow as well, and you're at the other end. Yours are declining and theirs are rising, and I think it's just a case of trying to come together. It can be difficult having conversations with a grumpy teenager, but perhaps put some notes on the fridge about crazy things about menopause, and don't talk to me today, I'm in the grumps. I don't know, just try and make it fun and silly, and eventually they might start asking you questions. The girls, I think, are better at talking to their mums about what's going on, and vice versa. Might be an issue with the boys. I don't have boys, but I know they're a completely different kettle of fish. But I think making fun with it, because they're grumpy, they're being a Kevin, and you're being a Karen, whatever.
Yeah,
And
that's a good thing with names, isn't it?
Yes.
Naming, I find naming the different personalities is
Yes.
I name the things in my head that go on. I have different people, so yeah.
Yes.
If you name them, one big one I've noticed friends around me is that when you kind of think, oh, this is happening, but I don't know what to do, and you kind of go down that rabbit hole of Googling of, don't take HRT, go natural, eat this, don't eat this, what? It's sort of, some people want to jump their partner the whole time. Some people couldn't think of anything worse and want to throw up when their partner comes near them. It's sort of what advice is on where to go? Because as you said, GPs are only, they go down a medical route, and some are very dismissive. Some are, you don't know who you're going to get as a GP on that front.
Well, I tell you, we had a very interesting chat with, we've got our own doctor on board now, Dr. Olivia, and our website's down at the moment. I believe it's going to be down until the weekend because we're updating it. And what we did with Dr. Olivia was to get her to do some FAQs, and I printed them off this morning. And so she talks about what is HRT, what's it about. Can I take it? There's members of my family with breast cancer. Can I still take it? What about testosterone, my libido? And does HRT give you breast cancer? I can tell you categorically, no, it does not. Everybody has a risk of breast cancer, but it's usually not until you're much older that might come into play, and not necessarily because you're on an estrogen supplement. What's the age limit? I've got hypothyroidism. Could this be menopause? And about weight and side effects. And she goes through the natural stuff as well. That I think when it comes to natural stuff, I think you need to consult an expert. That's always my advice. I went down the health food shop and filled up my basket with black cohosh, all the red clover, all the things that we hear about. This is good for you. This is good for you. This is good for you. But what is actually good for your symptoms? How much do you need? When do you take it? Can you trust the quality? And so please don't go down the local health food shop or online and just click on everything and say, right, I've got a basket of goodies here, and you're just shoveling it all every day, and you're not seeing whether there are any benefits or not. So it's best to consult an expert. If you're going to spend money on it, don't spend it on the products themselves. Spend it on the expert advice first, and then you won't need to buy so many products, and it will be better for you. So yes, I think HRT is brilliant. It's protective of heart, brain and bones. And they're even doing trials at the moment to see if it will be preventative of dementia in women in the future. So there's a lot of good stuff going on with HRT. Got bad press in the past for a whole lot of reasons 10, 15 years ago, mostly because the people doing the trials had an older cohort of women, the women on the trial, which then I think somebody announced that they had breast cancer, they were over 60. And it was so wrong age group of women to be testing HRT on. And so the whole thing got slammed, and they had to withdraw everything, all their statements that they made, and then everybody had to retest everything and, you know, look at all the evidence and the trials and everything and make some sense of it. So that's why a lot of thing comes out from the, you know, go on the British Menopause Association website, have a look at their sister charity, women's health concern.org. That's the patient arm of the British Menopause Society, and they've got a whole lot of factual stuff on there about menopause and about everything. And you can even phone up and have a consultation with a proper doctor who knows what they're talking about. So there is stuff out there.
And on the HRT front, because that's the other thing, isn't it? It's like you can suffer for sort of 10 years feeling up and down. And am I depressed? Am I bipolar? I'm emotional. And should, with something like HRT, is it better to go? Can you go to the doctor and get tested hormonal levels, and they'll say you probably need it, you don't need it, or
yeah, they can't really test your hormone levels because they're up and down. You need to do 100 blood tests in order to get a proper reading. They can't get a proper reading until you're about 50, which is when you are going into that stage where your periods are less, could be less, and with the word actual menopause means 12 months without a period. But if you have a period within that 12 months, you have to start the calendar again. So once you're 12 months without a period, you are then postmenopausal. So, and that's when the doctor knows. But the doctor should know by your age, your medical history, if you've had hormonal depression from the point of view of PMS in the past that's been recorded in your medical history. They should take that as an indicator that you may be experiencing that as you go through menopause. But as I said, when it happened to me, it was some time ago. Hope things have improved. My doctor reckoned she was pretty good on menopause, and she referred me to a psychiatrist and didn't even suggest to me at that time that there might be something going on there with my hormones causing all this stuff going on.
Yeah. And on the, because so saying that, you know, you take the HRT one when you're further down the line, and in the, you know, when you're going through that menopause bit, but for the sort of the years before that perimenopause, which are, you know, is when it's, you know, that could be years of, you know,
HRT has its values there. Again,
still,
in consultation with a specialist. It depends on your symptoms, how they're affecting you, your quality of life. Because somebody also said on the call we were on, it's just a lifestyle drug. It's not. It's about women's quality of life. Women are quite capable of making their own decisions. They know their bodies. So if they highlight certain symptoms, you know, make a note when you go to see the doctor, this is what's happening to me. Do I need HRT? And if they say no, say why not? And they need to give you an answer. And they may not know themselves. Doctors are very good at masking their lack of knowledge. They say, try this, come back in 3 months. But you need to be persistent and say, I think I'm going through perimenopause, I'm the right age group, I'm having these symptoms, and I don't think it's anything else. I've eliminated everything else. What can we do about it? Can you refer me to a specialist? And if you're persistent enough, and you must be persistent, and even complain to the surgery manager if you don't get what you want. I complained to my surgery because I was having my HRT prescribed on a private prescription that was up in London, and I'm down in Sussex. Couldn't be faffed to keep going up there and ask my surgery to fulfill the prescription. So I'm on estrogen, testosterone, and utrogestan, which is progesterone, and they wouldn't prescribe the testosterone because it's prescribed off license. That was a couple of years ago. Speaking to our Dr. Olivia, she said, and she just happens to be in the same CCG, clinical commissioning group, And she said, well, we're prescribing it because we know about it and we know what to do about it. She told me about a website with top tips for doctors about testosterone. I printed it off. I wrote a meaningful letter to the manager at the surgery and said, you know, this is daft. You should know about this. I want testosterone prescribed. And they did it in the end. So it pays to be persistent and not think that you're daft and not be pushed away because it's a women's issue. Oh, for goodness sake, it's menopause. You should be able to deal with this. No, absolutely not. You need advice, you need support, and you need care. Go and do it.
But that's the thing, you know, women's intuition, we've always, you know, for centuries been accused of being mad or thought we're mad and hysterical, and actually it's you know, our gut and our intuition is you can't beat it. So
Yes.
you know, they say that with cancer diagnosed, you know,
Yes.
for female bits, if it just doesn't feel right, you know what I mean, you just in the same way.
And don't put it off.
Yeah, exactly. So someone's asked on the other dietary effects on the menopause, should I be eating more snails or something?
Cool. I don't know about snails. Bit slimy unless you've got some hot sauce with them, I reckon. I only did it once. But yes, about you have to look at your lifestyle, what you're eating, and cut out as much as possible processed foods and fizzy drinks, because they're all toxic, they've all got chemicals in them, and they're not doing your body any good. I don't know if any of you saw that program. I can't remember his name now, but there are twin doctors, and one of them is a research doctor, and he went through this process of filling his face with hamburgers and all sorts of processed food for a month. They did a test on his brain before he embarked on that. He had quite a good diet before that, fresh foods, wholesome foods, all the rest of it. Yes, he was drinking wine and all the rest, but he didn't have a lot of processed foods in his diet. He put on, gosh, I can't remember, he put on stacks of weight in that 1 month. And they did tests on his brain, and it had affected his brain channels, because his brain was craving sugar and processed foods. So you're on a hiding to nothing. Having processed foods is telling your brain, oh, that was good, I like that. Oh, I'm hungry, I want some more of that. And so it begins. That's why we have an obesity problem, because that's happening and we haven't noticed, and nobody's really told us about it.
Yeah, sugar's a drug.
Yes,
it's as addictive as any other drug.
Yeah. So we've got to be careful about what we do, the best we can. Don't cut it out altogether in one fell swoop. You know, start slowly. Take this out, replace it with something else. You know, snacking during the day is always the big one. What do I replace it with? Oh no, not raw carrots again. You know, what do? You will eventually find some nuts. Yeah, but then they say you have to be careful with dried fruit and dried nuts, because if you have too much of them, they have their own effect on your body. It's just about balancing everything and being mediocre in what you're looking at. Yeah, you can go nuts sometimes. There's nothing wrong with the drink of wine. And I found, and it's still happening to me now, I know it won't change, that my level to accommodate the amount of alcohol I could drink changed. Absolutely, completely. Alcohol started to have a very bad effect on me, so I had to. Now I know only drink once or twice alcohol, glass of wine, once or twice a week, if at all, because it seems to have an accumulative effect. If I have a glass of wine Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, by Thursday I've got a hangover. What's that all about? And it's just nuts. So you've just got to be, and that's not just me, lots of women are coming out and saying that now. It doesn't mean you're an alcoholic. It just means that your body is changing. The hormones have changed, and they're processing everything that's going through your body in a much different way. Your metabolism is slowing down. That's probably why the alcohol stays in your body longer. So it takes longer to digest foods. And just awareness of that, and understanding a bit better, and think, yeah, I don't need so much food, and yeah, the wine's having an effect on me. I need to cut that down. So yeah.
And the and you're obviously speaking about food, but then exercise. We did a webinar and we had Ali on, and the whole weight training. That's the thing. I'm throwing really heavy weight around at the moment, but I find that makes a difference. I'm loving doing weights.
Oh right, yeah. Some women can't do that because it's just too much. So you have to find other things to do, like yoga and all the other gentler exercises, I suppose you could call them. But the core, they're exercising your core, strengthening your core, swimming,
Pilates,
running, walking, all those things. So doing some core exercises, weights if it works for you. But generally, the general population, women are not so hot on the weights. Some weights. When I go out walking, I've got these weighted gloves that I go, put weights on your ankles as well. But actually going down the gym and pushing and pulling and lifting weights isn't in intensity. You can still do it, but don't be so intense about it, Pat.
Yeah. Exactly. If you're not used to it as well, it's just adding that little bit of resistance, isn't it?
Do what feels right for you.
Yeah. And someone's asked, should you be on HRT for life? Is it sort of once you're on it, you're on it?
Yes. I am. You won't get me off it, because what does it do? Testosterone, for instance, makes you feel good. Actually, I was learning from Dr. Olivia the other day. Testosterone gives you energy that makes you want to do exercise, and but you can't overdo the testosterone. They give you a minute amount to take because it's off license, because it's prescribed generally for men. So testosterone is good for energy, and estrogen is it's supplementing the estrogen that has departed, gone for a long holiday, and you'll never see it again, and you're not replacing it properly with the food you eat. Because again, there's so many chemicals in our food. You're not, by eating phytoestrogens, it's still not giving you enough for what you could need. Some women don't need it at all. They feel, right, I'm okay, I don't need it. Of women that go through menopause, 80% of them will have debilitating symptoms of some degree or another, or to some degree or another. They might have lots, they might just have a few, and only 20% will sail through. But even those 20% of women, once they understand that they've gone through menopause, they then start looking back and ticking those boxes. They find out about the symptoms and they say, oh yeah, I wondered why I was feeling that. Oh yes, yeah, oh yeah. It suddenly fills the jigsaw puzzle, and they say, yeah, I knew I'd gone through menopause and thought I just sailed through, but actually I had a few issues. Didn't cause too many problems, but hey, now I know about it, and it's relief, isn't it? That you know something.
Does HRT make you keep having periods? Someone's asked.
Depends on the prescription for the HRT. It doesn't have to. I think it depends on your age. I think if you are not if you are under 50, I think doctors like to keep periods going, or not. They do it in consultation with you. If you don't want periods anymore, oh, for God's sake, please take away that. Don't want periods anymore. Then there's probably something they can do about that. So it's ask your doctor question.
Okay, perfect. And the final question before we end, can you start HRT in the mid-60s? And if yes, do you need lower doses of estrogen?
Yeah, they do say that you can. I started because I was off and on it. I was on it, then I was off it, felt okay. And it was only when I was diagnosed with osteopenia, which is the forerunner of osteoporosis, when I was about 60, 61, the doctor said to me, I'm going to put you on HRT because it will rebuild your bones. And I go, yeah, okay. And it did. Within 18 months, I was out of that danger zone of having osteoporosis and having brittle bones. So yes, in your 60s, again, in consultation with a menopause doctor who knows what they're talking about.
Okay, perfect. Well, do you know what? Thank you. I mean, we could sit here and I could fire 50 different questions at you, but all the other Emma has put all the websites and things you've mentioned into the chat. So everyone's, feel free to go down the rabbit hole of all the different sites. And And I'm sure, and all your contact details are on there. So if anyone's got any specific questions for Kathryn, then just
and don't forget the book.
And the book, exactly. Buy the book, How to Survive Menopause. So
chapter 10 is the men's room. So they get a chapter all to themselves. It's about their stories, what they've experienced of not andropause, but their partners going through menopause, and the hell that it has produced, and how they've overcome it. So or not.
Amazing.
So yeah, get the book.
I'm going to get it and give my husband that chapter.
Yes.
Cool. Nighttime reading. Perfect. Thank you very much for coming on. That was brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.